Hi there, my name's Dave. I am an analyst at the CTA. Normally I work on bus maintenance stuff, but I knew that there was this, what I assumed to be big, juicy data set of accident data out there. And I said, like, okay, nobody else has grabbed it, and it seems like there's like a lot of opportunity to work with that data set, and there's a lot of like insight that would be useful that we could get out of it. But my Python skills were pretty limited. I do a lot of my work in SQL and sometimes VBA, sometimes R. My background is in economics, and so I'd use a lot of Stata, but it seemed like Python was more useful, and I wanted to get better at it. I actually use it a little bit at work, but this seemed like a great opportunity. So is it a problem worth studying? Of course it is. There's 1,900 buses, 5,000 bus drivers, and about 650,000 bus rides given every weekday. So accidents are not that common, relatively speaking, but there's just so many buses out there that it is actually a big problem. If you look at it on aggregate, and then accidents are expensive. They make the authority look bad, and they mean like our fleet has to be bigger than it ought to be. You have to spend a lot of money on maintenance, retraining people. Sometimes operators or passengers will get hurt, and that's expensive. Then obviously we don't want people getting hurt. So it is definitely a worthwhile question. I pretty quickly found out why nobody had jumped at this before. The data was terrible. So it's collected and housed in this enormous, disorganized SQL database. It's spread across a whole bunch of tables, and I made the decision early on that I wasn't going to use SQL to answer these questions. I was just going to pull all that stuff out to CSV and then just start working with it in Python, which kind of makes sense because I was more ready to actually analyze it at that point. Just using SQL to pull it and then visualize it and analyze it in Excel would have been a really big task. Again, part of the reason nobody had done it before. There are a lot of questions that we could ask, whether it's like tailoring content to individual operators or like as a whole, content of training, or understanding like when is the moment to intervene and retrain somebody after how many years, if they're full-time or part-time. What are the characteristics of accident-prone drivers? So how can we predict when something's going to happen? And then just sort of more policy-wise, how many hours can a driver safely work in a week, in 2 weeks, in 4 days? It has to do with overtime, stuff like that. To be clear, I didn't really come with those questions. My mentor helped me understand, these are some of the things that we could pull out of this. These are some of the things that we could use this data set to answer, if only it were cleaner. To do this, I ended up using pandas really, really heavily for cleaning, for analysis, for some basic visualizations. I used matplotlib to explore trends, to look at relationships, to try to find outliers and get rid of them. I tried using gmplot and Altair. If you look at the YouTube videos, they produce great visualizations, but for me they weren't so good. I'm working on a Dell here, and so I think that was part of the problem. So I did use my girlfriend's Mac, and I loaded Anaconda on it, and I got somewhere with it on her computer, but nothing that great. And then I used Power BI, which is kind of like Tableau, for interactive visualization. So I know it's not Python, but it was really handy to present my results to other people at the CTA, and then it's really like you can click and the visualizations will change, and it's like deeply satisfying in that respect. So everybody likes using that. Yeah, I did run into a lot of problems with my data set. And I fell back on SQL when I could. This is ChiPy, not ShyQuil, rhymes with NyQuil. But it was really useful to double check. So I don't know if you can make it out here, but I have like this fairly long if statement with a lot of error handling, and I just couldn't get it to match what I was getting out of SQL. There were also a lot of missing data points, a lot of columns where I never actually figured out what the data was. And then the biggest problem, I think, was that I didn't really start with clear questions. I was kind of got ahead of myself with, okay, you know, we can do great analysis here, but I was never clear enough. But you know, I did find some interesting data, especially from visualizations. You know, drivers early in their careers are more accident prone, and the most common accidents are bus-on-bus and fixed objects, really minor accidents. And you can see most of the accidents happen downtown, although that's kind of a function of that's where most of the bus drivers are. So that is my 5 minutes.